Welcome to another edition of Disability and You. I'm Ganesh Singh. On this edition, I am having a discussion with Angelie Bishmattie, who is the Managing Director and founder of the Samir Uniquely Me, which is a school and training facility that provides services to children with autism. We are in Autism Awareness Month, that is April, and on April 2nd, Autism Awareness Day was observed, and it's a day designated by the United Nations since 2007 to raise awareness on persons who are living with autism. For those of you who are not too familiar with what is autism, it's a neurodevelopmental disorder that is characterized by behavioral challenges. Um, Persons who are on the autism spectrum, they have issues with social interaction. Some persons might be nonverbal, and you note I said spectrum because persons might have various degrees of autism, so they can be mild, moderate, or severe. But I will allow the expert, who is Angelina, to share with you more information on autism itself and also what she is doing at her facility to help with diagnosis and treatment for children with autism. Angelina, welcome to Disability and You, and congratulations on the work that you've been doing to raise awareness and also provide an avenue for diagnosis and treatment.
Thank you, Ganesh. Thank you for having me. And it's always a pleasure being here and spreading awareness.
Excellent.
It's,
So tell us a bit more about autism itself, for those who might not be familiar with the disorder.
and you have covered a partial what's there, but in general, there's three main areas that autism affect the child, and it's the communication, the social interaction, and they exhibit repetitive behaviors. And what that basically mean is that some, like you said, may be nonverbal, but some are very verbal but refuse to use their words or don't use it appropriately, repeat what you say, have echolalia, and they will use gesture to communicate instead of using the words or
Mhm.
behavior. And in the social aspect, they prefer to play alone, do not play appropriately with toys. Those are like to be not like to be in crowds, don't want to share with friends, very possessive of little objects that they may have and want to carry those around. And then in the repetitive behavior, you see a lot of finger movements. They like to have a structure. They get upset if that structure is changed. And those are the general things. There's so much
Mhm.
out there about autism and what signs of autism. I don't want to really go into
Yeah.
a lot of that, but I do want to share some of the services that we help
Yeah, please
with.
do. Please do so that persons can understand what you are doing with the organization.
Yes. So I will say to parents who have concern is to go to your doctor and tell them what you're seeing. Lack of eye contact, child not reaching their milestone in terms of development or having regression, mean that they used to talk but no longer talk, will do things that they no longer want to do and don't want to be involved in activities. Talk to your doctor or contact us. We will screen your child for speech impairment or learning disorder or autism and see where the child falls. And then we
Mhm.
will put a intervention program for that. If it's therapy, if it's support programs, so we work with kids with functional skills, life skills, academic skills, speech impairment, and we provide ABA therapy for children.
Mhm. And what diagnosis tool do you use to provide diagnosis for
We
children on the spectrum?
we there is autism can only be uh, screen through observation of the child
Mhm.
behavior. There is a 1 hour process where we observe the child behavior using different screening tools to see how children will manipulate these these tools that we have, different type of toys, cognition skills, how they respond, generally how they will behave, how they play, how they interact, It's and we have the M chat. They have a lot of 36 questions we will talk with the parents with, and just use that to see where the child fall.
Mm-hmm.
We'd also have Dr. Ellis, Dr. Jim Ellis, who will observe those. We will take videos and look at those, and we will have our speech pathologist also go over all those screenings, and then we will see where the child falls.
So it's a group of individuals that
Yes,
provide diagnosis for the
nicest.
child.
Yes.
And these persons are also based in Guyana, or they're
They are
further
based in
afield?
the U.S., Massachusetts, Boston, Massachusetts, but they also give insight into Samir Uniquely Me. So Samir Uniquely Me has Dr. Jim Ellis is a BCBA, Dr. Carrie Davis, a speech pathologist, myself, and we have Dr. Hardat Prasad, who is also a Guyanese. He's based in Guyana.
Mm-hmm. So it's as I said, a lot of experts that are involved in providing the diagnosis. But let's move forward after the diagnosis. You mentioned providing treatment. What break that down for us, please? Deconstruct that so we can have an understanding of what the treatment is like.
So we have an assessment for the child. Assessment is ABLES. It is where we screen the child to see where the child fall, where the language, what needs to be put in, what the child weaknesses and strength, and we will set that program based on the ABA methodology. For that, we work one on one with the child, and generally to bridge the gap that we see a child has between a typical learner and a child with neural learning
Mhm.
disorders.
So then, what are some of the things that you would do, on a daily basis when that child comes?
Okay, so the child will come in. We do a functional program where the child will learn to take off shoes, put away their shoes, put away backpack, know to find their spot where the little cubby where their own stuff goes. They go into one-on-one program straight after that, where they work with their tutors on a one-on-one based program that is individually set for that child using the screening tool that we had, the information that we had from the screening, where the program is set. After that, the child will go into a lunchtime where we will teach them to learn to eat independently. Then we work on them toileting, becoming independent and using the toilet. And then we also work on them if they need to learn to take a bath, how to be sensitized to taking a bath, having a shower, becoming independent, using washing hands. A lot of life skill throughout the day is being taught. Then they will have a circle time where they have a time to play with their friends in a group, learn stories, sit and listen to stories, cognition skills, answering questions from the story, generally taking part of a group activity. Then we have an outdoor activity. They will get to go learn to play in the park, jump on the trampoline, play games with friends. We have kids that comes in from 9 to 2 that they will go back to another one-on-one session where we will focus a lot on the academic skills of the children. And then we have support programs, children who we have sent off to regular schools and come back in the afternoon for a support program where we do analysis of the difficulties they're having in school and help them to work towards
Mhm.
meeting the general goal for that. We also have kids who come twice a week just for one-on-one or who cannot access us on 5 days a week. So it is a bit structured for the individual child
Mhm.
and also to help parents that they to meet their child's need who will maybe struggling to do that on an everyday basis. So it's individualized even for the families.
So there's also group therapy where the family it might be involved.
Yes.
Mhm. You mentioned mainstreaming children that might be going to the regular school and you provide support. Tell us a bit more in detail what support entails, what that support entails.
So let's say we have sent off a child to regular school, or let's say a child going to a regular school is having difficulty following classroom work, not able to do their work, but we know that they can. but they don't have the one-on-one attention to get it done. Their focus span is very short. They have very weak writing skills. Those are the programs we will put into place for children not able to socializing, not able to form conversation, not able to follow
But
direction
but
from the teacher.
do you guys do any academic with them?
Yes, we do have academic skill programs for the children.
Mostly the ones that are in mainstream schools.
Yes. Social skills also we help to provide for those who are in mainstream.
Angelina, as I said at the beginning of our discussion, you do a lot of work in raising awareness. And I know in observance of Autism Awareness Month, you have a number of activities planned. Tell us more about those activities.
Yes, well, we have, we have our main branch on the West Coast, and I have found that the knowledge or for where autism is concerned is very, very limited. And so one of my goal has always to be to educate the Guyanese population on autism. And so Samir Uniquely Me is hosting two autism awareness walks, and the first one will be held on the West Coast in Kearney, from Kearney to Ada to La Jealousy by the Pyramid by the park there.
I
It's
remember
on
that
the
day.
16th of April, and we gather at 6:30, but we hope to leave at 7 to start off.
And the starting point is?
Yes, and the starting point is by Swami School. A lot of people know that school. It's on the road front. They could call us for information also. And the other walk is on the 23rd of April, and that is in Georgetown, starting from the Promenade Garden, and we make our way into National Park. And at the end of each walk, we will have a little sermon where we will share information and educate on autism. We have some speakers. Dr. Ellis will be here, one minister, and Dr. Hardet, and a few parents and other advocates of autism will be able to be there to share and to educate on autism awareness.
Excellent. So, how can persons get in contact if they want to join the march? And I know you also have some awareness T-shirts that persons can purchase to, you know, be uniformed on the walk, but also to raise awareness on autism. How can they get in contact with you?
My number is 650-6494, 650-6494, and you can contact us and Samir Uniquely Me. Message us, call that number, and you will have the t-shirt. The t-shirts are $2,000. But Ganesh, what I want to say is that if you don't get you don't want to have a t-shirt for our awareness walk, just you could also wear a blue or a white t-shirt and join the walk. This is, we want to educate, we want to spread it out, we want this to be well attended. So we are not confining anyone to get a t-shirt. If you would like to have a t-shirt that has Autism Awareness Walk on it, contact us, get your t-shirt. If you would like to join us but can't have a t-shirt, then come out and join us. Don't let that be a barrier for you not to be there.
Angelina, I want to thank you very much for sharing with the general public on the work that you're doing at Samir Uniquely Me, and also the work that you're doing in raising awareness on autism here in Guyana. It's a disorder that I would say for the past 5 years we've been able to get a bit more visibility on. And I'm sure with the work you're doing and the work of other places, such as the International Development and Relief Foundation, the Regional Disability and Diagnostic Center, and so on, we would definitely see significant improvements in the lives of persons living with autism. So, best wishes with the awareness marches and the work that you're doing with the organization.
Thank you, Ganesh. Thank you for having me.
I'm now joined by Gabriel Gilks, who is a young disability rights advocate. Recently, Gabriel was in Costa Rica and he participated along with Rosemary Ramit in the Democracy Summit Youth Cohort, and they were supported by the International Foundation of Electoral Systems. Gabriel, welcome to the program and tell us about your involvement in the Democracy Summit, the youth cohort that was held in Costa Rica. Tell us a bit more about that.
Hi, sorry, Ganesh. Thank you for having me. So my involvement was pretty much just to observe and offer any sort of insight into the conversation, right? So for me personally, it was a great experience. We were able to hear and listen to other youth advocates, right? That's focused mostly on making sure that youths in their country become more involved in the respective democracies. They also spoke about the varying ways that their democratic rights were infringed upon, right? So that was definitely the main thing that we came to.
So it was mainly young people, talking about the challenges and how they can be more involved in the governance system within their territories.
Yes.
Um, where were some of the persons from the youth? So tell us about the representation. Where were these individuals from?
For various nations, there were persons from Latin America. There were persons from the continent of Africa. There were persons from Europe. Right. There
So it
were.
was a wide cross section of individuals.
Yes.
Were there other persons with disabilities other than Rosemary and yourself, or you guys were the only two persons or young persons with disabilities at the summit?
Disappointingly, I think there was. I can't say whether or not she was disabled, but there was a lady in crutches. You were there, and so yeah, I think it was just me, Rosemary, and I think there was a lady in crutches. I don't know if she had a permanent disability or it was just an injury. Yeah.
So that was just so registered delegates, which that can be considered youth. It's your Rosemary and yourself.
Yes.
Gabriel, how has the experience changed your advocacy perspective as a young person with a disability?
Okay, so I would say in two specific ways. Um, the way was which I expected. We were basically there listening to other youth advocates that spoke about their trials and tribulations. They spoke about in varying degrees, where you would hear somebody talking about, for example, there was a man from Nigeria that spoke about how in Nigeria, as youths, their rights to participate in the electoral process is being infringed upon. For example, he spoke about how, as a youth, despite seeing that youths in Nigeria are capable of presenting ideas, as candidates, he was being told that he shouldn't participate as a candidate because he was too young, right? But then you can go to the other extreme where we heard from an indigenous person from Peru who spoke about her troubles having to fight against our government that is persecuting our people and persecuting to the utmost extent where they're basically trying to sterilize them and kill them. Right.
So basically, you got a world perspective
Definitely.
on what are some of the challenges young people are encountering
Yeah.
elsewhere. Gabriel, I know prior to our for us sitting down and conducting this interview, you would have mentioned your experience in Costa Rica itself as someone a wheelchair user and how accessible the environment is. Tell us a bit more about that experience.
Well, like I said, it impacted me in two ways, and this is the second way. So when I was invited to Costa Rica, I didn't know what to expect. Um, and so when I touched down, I think the first thing I noticed was how accessible it was, the hotel, right? There were ramps, right? That made it easier for me to push my wheelchair through, right? And I was like, that's what we should expect. But I noticed as we traveled to more and more places, right, places that I didn't expect to be accessible were accessible. For example, some of the streets, right? There were there were streets that had curb ramps, so that wheelchair users could, in theory, maneuver around the city without much assistance.
So there were curb cuts on each sidewalk.
Yes. Also, and this I think was the most impressive part, was that I think almost each or every area that we went into, every building, had some sort of wheelchair accessible restroom, right? And I thought that was very
And they
impressive.
had ramps to get into the building. What about lifts and elevators? Were those present?
I would say, yeah, I would say at least in every building that we went into, there was some sort of lift or elevator. And I was surprised at how, while we were traveling, you would look at some of the commercial areas, people the places you expect people to go and shop and to do their business. Every time you would expect, okay, we're seeing stairs here. There's no way this place is going to get a ramp. But for some reason, you'd always see a ramp. So I was very impressed. Right?
So even the shopping district, it was accessible.
Yes.
What about restaurants and tourist destinations like museums and so on? Were those accessible?
Definitely. And in two ways, there were ramps and there were also elevators. And surprisingly, and this year was really, this was a head scratcher in a good way. There were actually wheelchairs for persons who may need them for whatever reason, right? There were like spare wheelchairs, extra wheelchairs so persons can use.
So someone, if they were transferring out of their vehicle and they probably forgot their wheelchair for whatever reason, there was one there present.
Yes.
That's very interesting. And did you find that at many different locations, or it was just a one-off?
Well, not in every location, but two locations. There was one at a restaurant, and there was one at a museum. I was surprised to even find one, much less two locations.
So they okay.
Yeah.
So as a wheelchair user and a young disability rights advocate, you were not just impacted by your participation in the summit itself, but also your experience traversing the built environment. Gabriel, I'm sure that took a lot of advocacy from the disability rights advocate, especially those with mobility issues, to get the city as accessible as it is. From having that experience, how would that inform your advocacy moving forward? Because I know you are at the forefront of ensuring that Ghana becomes more accessible, working with your organization and other colleagues that are wheelchair users. How would that experience inform your advocacy? How has it changed your approach to advocacy?
Well, after our trip to Costa Rica, I started to think to myself, and I spoke to the other members of my organization, Guyana's Association for Persons with Physical Disabilities. We were discussing like how were they able to make such sweeping changes into the country, and I looked and it was legislated, and it was legislated by pressure from disability advocates like you and myself. I think in 1994, right? A group of disability advocates comprised of parents and other persons with disabilities came together and spoke to the government. And the government was able to pass a law. I don't remember the law right now. But,
and I'm sure the language barrier would have also posed some challenges there.
Yeah.
But is it a specific law on accessibility, or is it a component of a broader disability legislation?
Okay, it was focused on, and if you don't mind, let me make sure that I get this correct. It was okay, so the law was specific. The first thing the disability advocates asked is that they wanted somebody, right, to advocate within the government to offer advice to the president. And that person said, okay, what we like to do in each government, in each area of the government, a disabled person should be there,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it end up having a domino effect where each person within a government agency were able to offer advice and say, I think that, let's say, the part of the government has to deal with infrastructure. That
Mm-hmm.
person was able to offer their advice. So I guess it's important to show why it's important to have representatives in each part of the government, because that's how they were able to make
Those
those
changes.
changes.
So it was
Also,
both internal and external.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
right. So eventually they passed a law saying that each area, each part of the country should be accessible in terms of infrastructure, and the government will also work with private entities to make sure that these things are
Mm-hmm.
implemented properly.
Excellent. Gabriel, I'm sure that with that experience and your passion, we would see changes in the not too distant future in relation to accessibility um, within not just Georgetown but Guyana as a whole, because we already have legislation, but it's just the enforcement.
Yeah.
So, all the best with your efforts, and I want to thank you very much for sharing with the general public on your experience, not just at the Democracy Summit as a youth delegate, but also visiting Costa Rica and sharing your experience with the accessibility of the built environment.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, and do join me next time for another edition of Disability and You. Goodbye.